Alright, so I just watched the Vegan Gains versus Primal Edge Health debate on ethics. And I have to say, this is, again, just insane. It's mind boggling. I am not against veganism, although I make a lot of videos explaining the flaws in a lot of the science that claims red meat is bad, and I don't like how vegans identify with a vegan diet despite having health problems that could possibly be created from the vegan diet. So I have concerns on the health aspects. However, I've also talked a lot about the ketogenic diet and some of the benefits of low carb dieting and nutritional aspects. So I'm not against carnivore. I'm not against vegan. I'm not rooting for either team. However, I was hoping that team red meat or whatever would have some kind of good argument, right? I've been watching Primal Edge Health's channel for years now, okay? I was a big fan, right? Well, this debate was horrible because Tristan from Primal Edge Health makes absolutely no sense when attempting to connect the dots behind the reasoning of his beliefs. He said that his whole idea of ethics is based on the Bible. He says that the Bible governs his ethics. And so Richard, Vegan Gains, Vegan Gains actually asked him if the Bible says it's okay to rape a child. That's what Richard said. If the Bible says it's okay to rape a child, would that make it okay? And Tristan dodged the question and attempted to shame Richard. His response was something like, "Wow, Richard, you're such a sick, twisted, disgusting, evil, satanically possessed person, pervert, to come up with such a crazy question like that. Why do we have to bring children into it?" Instead of just answering the question and attempting to follow along with the debate and actually get somewhere productive, instead of trying to be productive, he dodges the question. And the thing is, Tristan's entire argument of ethics relies on the credibility of the Bible. And since Tristan wasn't willing to debate the credibility of the Bible, his entire idea of ethics falls and crumbles. So the entire debate was just Tristan dodging questions and attempting and passively aggressively being very passive aggressive, being very delusional, being very childish, and constantly talking down, like being derogatory, calling them a faggot, calling them faggots, calling them soy boys and stuff like that. Instead of answering questions, instead of discussing and debating the topic at hand, Tristan was just talking shit, talking trash. He was being condescending, being passive aggressive. These are all personality traits of somebody who's extremely delusional and in extreme denial. So again, I was a fan of his for a long time. Well, not a fan, I just really loved his channel and his information. I thought that he had a lot of great information, and I thought he was a really cool person. But listening to this, I realized this guy cannot be trusted. He's not, like, no matter what you believe, he's not a credible source of information. And his friend Jay, like, I don't know what the fuck he was trying to say. He was trying to say that everybody follows logic whether they know it or not, or something weird like that.
I couldn't really understand what he was saying because he kept talking over Vegan Gains every single time they tried to ask him to clarify, and he kept persisting on nonsense. It made no sense, and so he just rage quitted because he couldn't deal with questions. He couldn't deal with the fact that he wasn't making sense. He didn't understand. He wasn't making sense. So Tristan was also trying to say that it doesn't make sense to. He was trying to say that the physical evidence is irrelevant and it's metaphysical. That nothing is physical and everything is metaphysical. And the problem is this allows anybody to believe anything because it means that evidence and science does not exist. And without science and without evidence, we're not able to figure out what's probably true. And people can just believe in vampires and unicorns and crazy shit with no evidence. It's not productive for a society to run on metaphysical, anything is possible type belief systems. That's why we have laws. That's why we base our morals and ethics on physical reality. We live in physical reality, and therefore we must our decision-making process must be governed on physical laws, not metaphysical, the Bible and this and that. And Vegan Gains asked, well, why, how do you know that the Bible is fact? What about the Quran? How do you know that the Quran is not the truth? And then again, Tristan kept lollygagging over it and making underhanded remarks and just being a passive-aggressive, delusional person instead of just answering the question and trying to connect the dots and make sense of what he believes in. And it's just like, he was just basically trying to say, ethics is based on the Bible, period. There's no reason. It just is. I don't need evidence. I can just make statements and not have any evidence and not make any sense of what I'm saying. It was really pathetic. And this is a guy who bans people from his YouTube channel if they comment things he doesn't agree with. So if people disagree with his YouTube channel, he'll ban them from his channel. So if you make a comment on his channel saying, are you sure that your beliefs are true? Or bringing counter evidence, instead of addressing the counter evidence and debating, Tristan just blocks them. And that is a sign that the guy is scared of counter evidence, that he's just believing what he believes in without actually going through the process of logic and reasoning to truly validate whether your belief is true or not. There's a lot of meat eaters that comment on Vegan Gains channel, and he just allows it because he knows that there's plenty of people that can debate them, and you know, there's no reason to ignore people if you really believe that their arguments are flawed. There's no reason to block people's comments if you truly believe that their comments are bullshit. When I see dumb comments from people, I don't block them. I'm just like, okay, that's silly. I assume they have mental health issues, depending on what it is. If they tell me to put a shirt on, I'm like, okay, that's stupid. But if they tell me, you know, I don't know, astrology is wrong because it cannot be proved by science, well, then I'll talk with them a little bit and we'll talk about it. Because maybe I'm wrong. But Tristan is just so, it's dogma for him. It's like, the Bible says it's true, therefore it is. Weston Price says it's true, therefore it is. No critical basis, and he really showed in this debate. It was just a clusterfuck of nonsense. The whole time, Tristan was just trying to pretend like he's some moral high ground guy. Meanwhile, he's calling Vegan Gains a faggot and a soy boy the whole time. What a good person, what a logical person, an intelligent person, somebody who's you know, morally correct or ethically correct, really? Would you be down talking homosexual people? I think that's foolish. Of course, I use the word faggot all the time, but not to this extent, not in this derogatory form, and maybe I do. But I must admit, I have nothing against homosexuals, and I wouldn't equate people I disagree with to homosexuals. Leave your questions and comments. Let me know what you thought about the debate.